Okay, so let's look at chapter 13, because here we get a good image that sort of captures really the whole thing he's talking about. But let us come back to it. The problem of another origin of the good, as the resentful man has thought it out, demands its solution. It's not surprising that the lambs should bear a grudge against the great birds of prey, but that is no reason for blaming the great birds of prey for taking the little lambs. And when the lambs say among themselves, "These birds of prey are evil," and he who is far removed from being a bird of prey, who is rather its opposite, a lamb, is he not good? And there is nothing to cavil at in setting up this idea, though it may be that the birds of prey will regard it a little sneeringly and perchance say to themselves, "We bear no grudge against them, those good lambs. We even like them. Nothing is tastier than a tender lamb." To require of strength that it should not express itself as strength, that it should not be a wish to overpower, a wish to overthrow, a wish to become master, a thirst for enemies and antagonisms and triumphs, is just as absurd as to require of weakness that it should express itself as strength. So there I think we get kind of, let's go to our whiteboard here. So there I think we get, kind of like a final image of what Nietzsche's talking about here. But I think you get the point, right? So let's kind of put things together by way of a conclusion of sorts. So here, right, in any society, you have the aristocratic and you have the herd, right? And the aristocratic values, wait, we should call that what it is, different values, as we saw, are about strength, right? Domination, will to power, etc., right? So, and also, unapologetic strength. Well, let's go unapologetic triumph. How's that? Right? Whereas to the herd mentality is about seeking peace, seeking contentment, equality. Unfortunately, in what was it? In Beyond Good and Evil, he talks more about the herd mentality, and we're not reading that, but he talks at length about how it's about equality, which is why, again, I don't want us to think that, we've been studying, an anti-Semite racist, although you could pull that out of there, but it's a continuation between the Jewish faith that first thought about God will get you. Then the Christians also had the same idea with Christ, who literally, don't forget, was crucified, right? So that's a very much a death in the political realm. It's a death of weakness. And then in liberal democracies with equality, it's the same thing. So there's been this continuity of herd mentality for like a couple thousand years. That's what he's trying to say. So you'll notice these totally different value sets, right? And his point is that in terms of history, nations kind of do this, right? They get to a certain point of wealth and power. No, don't do that. Why would you do that? I didn't tell you to do that. That line just straightened itself out. Anyway, it's like you have, in terms of time and power, nations start out really, simple, weak. Think of our own history, right? In the United States, we start out, in the 1600s, just trying to survive, right? 1700s, we find our revolution. We become ourselves. 1800s, we're not that much, not a big deal. We're growing, our economy's growing. 1900s, 20th century America really takes off, right? After World War II, we're the Mac Daddies. And then you get to like this high point. We haven't gotten there yet, but take Rome. Rome, same thing. Very small, grows in strength and power. Then you have civil wars and all this, and it destroys itself and falls apart. What Nietzsche is saying, ultimately with all this stuff, whoa, what happened there? Is this. You have the herd mentality here. I'm sorry. The noble mentality here. So when you're literally conquering, right, bringing more land, more wealth, under your banner, when you're dominating and, will to power and triumphing, you have one type of morality. And then once a nation gets to its top, once the nation gets to its zenith, it switches to a herd mentality, in that there's now more people who, in terms of numbers, right? The numbers here begin to overwhelm the numbers here. And so what happens is the herd mentality slowly kind of overtakes this one, and especially with the priests, says all this is bad. And so then what becomes good is, peace and contentment and equality and all that kind of stuff. In other words, nobody's conquering anymore. And that's what does in cultures. Eventually they're taken over by someone else who is going to be super noble. So he talks about Rome as an example of this. On its way up, Rome dominated the world. Rome conquered everybody. Rome set up a civilization the world had never seen before. And what happened to Rome? In Nietzsche's estimation, they were Christianized. And that was toward the end of their history. And when they became Christianized, they lacked the will to be able to police their own borders. And Germans came pouring in. And the Germans, I shouldn't have erased it, were full of aristocratic knightly virtue, according to Nietzsche. And so when Rome got to its, let's do another color. When Rome got to, the height of its power, it became soft, it became herd-like, it became of the slave morality. He called this master, this slave morality. And when that happens, it falls apart, and then it's taken over by someone who is dominant. So the Germans at the time had the master morality. They were the ones who would conquer with strength, domination, will to power, all that kind of stuff. And the Romans were just like, too tired and interested in contentment and peace to fight back. That's essentially Nietzsche's idea of what is good. Good, well, there's different types of good. One is an ascending good, but what he does say is that we are happy only when we are ascending. So, in other words, it is, while there are two different types of morals to him, the two different value systems, it's the noble one that's the good one. That's the one we should emulate. Because as he says, when we're ascending, right, when we're, conquering, triumphing, bettering ourselves, that's when we are truly happy and truly good. And so that ultimately is what Nietzsche believes is good. Now, how do I? Yeah. And then this, by the way, and the rest of it gets a little bit poetic. There's a whole nother one if you want to read this one. But I think we're good. I think we understand Nietzsche for our purposes.